It's the Security Weekly News, number 186 for the week of 6 February 2022. Crypto, and more crypto. SIM swapping, Maze surrenders, Win 11 scam, Tesla, and all the show wrap-ups on the Security Weekly News.
This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News. Monitoring and maintaining compliance is a never-ending struggle with a high price of failure. FIREMON helps customers meet complex and varying compliance requirements. FIREMON has fully customizable reporting, analytics, assessments, and dashboards to meet the compliance needs of any organization. With FIREMON, compliance reports take a tenth of the time, and real-time continuous compliance eliminates the anxiety and headaches of audit preparation. Improve security outcomes by improving security operations with FIREMON. Visit securityweekly.com/FIREMON to learn more. Every 11 seconds, there's a new ransomware attack. Oil pipelines, universities, corporations, all paying millions of dollars. Barracuda says, don't pay the ransom. Before a ransomware attack occurs, train your teams to recognize an attack and use anti-phishing technology. Protect your applications, and they can't get onto your network. Simple backup and restore solutions quickly recover your data without paying the ransom. Build your ransomware protection plan now by visiting securityweekly.com/Barracuda. That's securityweekly.com/Barracuda.
All right, I'm Doug White from Roger Williams University, and this is the Security Weekly News Wrap-Up Show. This week on Application Security Weekly number 183, John and Mike had Amit Elazari, the Director of Global Security Policy at Intel Corporation, on the first segment. Amit was on to talk about the security from a policy perspective, which is becoming more of a thing. I mean, there was a long time that was kind of a sort of back office sort of thing, but it's becoming a more standard kind of thing. In particular, this discussion was about incident response, software and product assurance, coordinated vulnerability disclosure, and connecting product regulations and all that stuff, and how all that stuff is very rapidly developing around the world. So we've certainly seen that over the last few years. They also talked about bug bounties and disclosure and all that kind of stuff, and that is a big deal now. You know, I mean, it's like something that nobody ever used to do, and of course, most people's policies 20 years ago were never, ever discuss any such things in public. But we're getting better. So talking about it makes it better, I guess. I think so. In the second segment, vulns in HTTP3 server, path traversal in Argo CD, Log4Shell from a perspective of Log4j devs. MDHS launches Cyber Safety Review Board. OSSF launches Alpha and Omega projects. Resources for learning reverse engineering, and AppSec. So a whole bunch of news stories for them. On Business Security Weekly number 249, Ben, Bill, Jason, and Matt had a whole crew there, had Anne-Marie Vandenherk, a small business cybersecurity champion at Mind the Gap Cyber, on the show. Anne-Marie was on to talk about how effective, this, I really, I saw this and I was like, okay, yeah, please. How effective cyber crisis communication is critical, and it's often overlooked. And what they were talking about was how critical communication actually works. And if you don't have it, you're never going to get back up and running anytime soon. And I always used to talk about when we were doing disaster recovery planning, later called business continuity planning because they didn't like the word disaster. But I always used to talk about how it's easy to say you have a plan. It's even easy to say you have a binder with a plan in it. But if you don't practice it, and it's not updated, and it has to be automatic muscle memory. And if it's not going to work. And I used to write exercises to test this stuff when I was doing auditing for this, and we would go in, and I almost always started the exercise with, okay, who's the first person you call when something goes wrong? And they would say, Bert. And I would go, okay, Bert is now no longer with us. A lightning bolt hit Bert this morning, and you just got attacked. Who do you call? And usually there was absolutely no response. They were like, well, if we can't call Bert, what are we going to do? In the second segment, they had news, cybersecurity policy creation, priority 1, 5 steps to run a successful cybersecurity champions program, the war for cloud and cybersecurity talent, which is a big one, and they had a lot of other news stories as well. On Enterprise Security Weekly 260, Adrian, Katie, and Lee, and Tyler, so another large lineup on the show, talked about NFTs, crypto, and other blockchain issues right up front. And they talked, and this, if you are interested in any of these things, and I'm going to talk about these things in a bit too, but if you are interested in these things, definitely check out this segment, because they were talking about how to protect those assets and all the mistakes that consumers are going to make with these products, and they're making mistakes all the time. A very, very nice discussion there. In the second segment, Brandon Williams, the VP of Strategy at Ping Identity, was on the show. Brandon was on to talk about the current state of identity challenges in the enterprise, the state of MFA adoption. So it's a big deal, and you're going to hear more about that in relation to crypto and other things. But the state of MFA adoption, the methods of MFA that you might want to use, and what's next. What is the step after that? MFA is not a panacea. So this is a very topical segment. In their third segment, they had the news. On the Security Weekly News, number 18, can you believe we've done 100? This is episode 186 of this. It seems like we just started doing this, but then I was like, wow, that was a while ago. On Security Weekly News, number 185, Jason Wood came on and talked about the CISA edition of a Windows bug. So this was a story this week. And it was more, not so much about the bug itself, but it was about the implications for federal agencies that are subject to this, because they got notified that they had to have all this stuff corrected by February 18th, according to CISA, if that applies to you. So a very interesting little talk there. On Paul's Security Weekly, number 727, a lot of content on Wednesday. They had a live stream. They had a person that was rapping about random objects, which was pretty interesting, and a lot of other content in this challenge. But first up on the show on Wednesday night was Brian Honan, the CEO at BH Consulting. And this discussion was about a very interesting thing to me, how we've spent decades, and some of us have been here for decades, using technology to try and solve security problems, and that seems to be failing. And I've been saying that for a long time, that so much of this was about the infinite series. There's an infinite number of hackers and an infinite number of victims. And when you have both those things, the answer to every single equation is infinity. So guess what? This conversation was about how other industries like the automotive industry and the air travel industry have approached safety in their industries and security, and lessons we can learn from that. So a very interesting segment in general. On the second segment, they did security news. And the third segment, Wheel, this is also a great segment. Wheel from Qualys came on. And Wheel was the person who discovered this 12-year-old Linux vulnerability in PolicyKit, or PwnKit is what it's called. But and provided an overview of this vulnerability, a technical discussion, research, and actually demonstrated how this works. Very cool if you like those kinds of things. My threat of the week is going to be, well, you guessed it, crypto. I usually pick these threats based on, what are the top stories? What do I think is going to affect people the most in the near term? And crypto is a very popular buzzword. I mean, whether it's the latest cryptocurrency like Scum Coin or Cheesewater Coin or whatever it is it NFTs? Every major news outlet has had stories about NFTs in the last few months, but all of it is just all the rage. And I have always had strong reservations about this ever since the very first time I heard about cryptocurrency. And I think it was about Bitcoin way back when. It was when it first came out. And talking about Bitcoin, I didn't know what it was initially. And when the person that was telling me about it, who I'm not going to name, but it was way back in the early part of the 21st century. But this person who is possibly heavily involved in cryptocurrency as well was talking to me about it. I really liked the idea of the untraceable thing, and it sounded like this may be the next stage in how people exchange monetary goods for transactions and so forth. And I like the untraceable, not because I do illegal stuff or whatever, but it was a very interesting idea. And my initial reaction was, wow, everybody's going to jump in on that bandwagon, at least until the government finds out about it. And then, but it didn't really take off. Because the minute the government got in, I was immediately thinking, yeah, but the government's not going to like this very much because people can use it for, to launder money. They can use it to avoid taxes. Because, think about it. If I could get the university to pay me in Bitcoin and not report it, the IRS wouldn't know about it, and I wouldn't have to pay taxes on it and so forth. And I thought maybe this all goes underground pretty fast, which it kind of did. Now, note this. If I had bought the Bitcoin back when I was first told about it and I thought about buying it, and I honestly tried to buy some, it was just not a very easy thing to do at the time. Let's just say I wouldn't be here. I'd be over there with Jeff Bezos in Amsterdam trying to get him to rebuild a bridge, because I was going to buy. I was going to try to buy 10 Bitcoin. Yeah, well, I guess I couldn't buy a super yacht with 10 Bitcoin, but I sure could have done something. And my yacht would be just a little bit bigger than Bezos's. Not a whole bunch, just like a little bit, like maybe 2 centimeters or something, just enough so it would drive him crazy. Because it's just that. He'd have to go get his whole yacht rebuilt, so it would be 3 centimeters bigger than it is, so that would be bigger than mine. Yeah, that kind of stuff. But I would be such a great billionaire, so if anybody wants to donate money to me, I could be completely insane and tyrannical. I know that's hard for you to believe, but I could. But anyway, crypto became a thing despite my reservation. Now, when I was first criticizing it, I said, well, it seems dangerous to have all your money in a place that could just evaporate. So, like Mount Gox or something. You lose your wallet and it gets hacked and you can't prove it's yours. And my friend I was talking to about this said, yeah, but that $20 bill in your wallet, and he was kind of assuming I actually had $20, would also be gone if you dropped it on the subway platform. And then what would you do? But it took off anyway. People got on board and people bought Bitcoin, and some people spent Bitcoin on pizzas. And now today they're saying, I paid, $3 million for a pizza back in, in 2007 or whatever. But, it took off. Then today we have NFTs, which are really kind of the same thing. It's just, in fact, it's exactly the same thing, really. It's just now there's a blockchain hash that belongs to some digital asset that says, hey, I own Bored Monkey, or I own, one of these memes or whatever. And you can say you own an anime character of Sailor Moon, and you say, it's mine, all mine, while laughing maniacally on the bow of your super yacht at Bezos, who doesn't own Sailor Moon, over there on his super yacht, which is 2 centimeters smaller than mine. And, theoretically anyway, you could sink all your cash into some of this. You could sink all your cash into some cryptocurrency and stash it away offshore. Nobody knows it's there. And again, it presumes you have any cash to begin with. But if you did, and you put it into crypto, and the crypto didn't yo-yo around like a rabid ground squirrel until you jump off the Brooklyn Bridge laughing maniacally, when it's down 99% after being up 999% this morning and then down 993% this afternoon, it's an interesting idea. Basically, it's a hash, right? And it's associated with some sort of value. And we can ask ourselves, what is value anyway? It's whatever people believe it is. If a dollar bill will buy a loaf of bread, and no, I don't know what a loaf of bread costs, sorry, but a dollar's worth a loaf of bread. And I guess that's worth something to someone who wants bread. But we all sort of blindly accept that a piece of paper that somebody gave us, is worth $1. And it's worth this because the government tells us that it is. It's really just a piece of paper with a picture on it, and it's only worth anything at all because we all believe that it's worth something. You can't eat it. You probably can't use it for much unless somebody's willing to accept it for something. And not to mention, how often do you even have cash? It's all just numbers somewhere. You think about all your savings, assuming you have any, it's not tangible. It's just a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper, and that's what let Bernie Madoff run that Ponzi scheme for all those years, right, and get away with it because it was just numbers on paper. So in that regard, crypto, and yes, I have a point, crypto really isn't any different than dollar bills. It's not backed by anything real. You can't trade it for gold bars. And, used to government-issued money, you could trade for gold. And, why the hell is gold worth anything, if you think about it? It's just this metal that comes out of the ground. I never did understand. Are diamonds? Have you ever thought about, diamonds? It's like this, rock that comes out of the ground, and for some reason it's worth all this money. You can't eat it. and you can't really do much of anything with it, really. I mean, I guess you can wear it and look all blinged out, but I mean, it's not really worth anything. But so why did I make crypto a threat then? Well, I think it's a threat because it's so popular. And until it stabilizes and people can start to understand it, it's definitely out in the deep realm of wild speculation with your money. But to me, the real threat is that most people don't seem to fathom what it actually is or where there are dangers involving it. I mean, if you lose that hash, well, it's just like a big bag of money. And when it's gone, well, it's just as gone as that $20 bill you dropped on the subway platform. And good luck getting that back out of that lady with the newspaper diaper that has put it in her mouth. I actually saw that happen once. I mean, she's not giving it back. And if she did, you probably don't want it anyway. But, I mean, she took it and she picked up this money this lady dropped. The lady dropped like, I don't know, it was 100 or something. And this woman that was wearing like newspaper diapers picked it up and put it in her mouth. And, I was like, well, that's a good tactic. I mean, nobody wants that back. But, I mean, look at this hack. I'm going to talk about this a news story later. But there was a hack at Bitfinex that happened, I think, back in like 2015 or 2016. And $3.6 billion worth of Bitcoin was stolen. And these two people got arrested. But, I mean, all of that was recovered by the feds, which is a miracle, but billions of dollars, and it was just gone. I mean, talk about a heist. Well, anyway, all this hack, what if all your assets were in this wallet, your retirement savings or whatever, and it got pilfered on the way to the fair like you got pickpocketed in the Middle Ages? It's gone. So I think we need to spend more time educating people on the risks of this type of holding, the wild fluctuations in the value of these things. And, people seem to be, really ready to jump on this. But a lot of these exchanges don't seem to be very secure. And there's not really any, way back if your money all gets stolen. And, maybe the feds recover it. But can you even prove it's yours if they do? I mean, not if you're hiding it. So I don't know. Of course, if somebody steals your wallet and takes all your cash, well, same problem. If Bernie Madoff takes all your money and lies about it, it's going to gone. So I guess in the meantime, I'm just going to keep buying Narragansett beer and shotgun shells with all my excess cash. At least I can trade them for something down at the Thunderdome. Yeah. Boy, I talked about that for too long. It's important. All right. If you haven't watched that in the news, if you haven't watched that SIM swapping segment on Paul Security Weekly, it was all the way back on the now infamous Meat Scented Candles episode number 701. So if you go back to episode 701, there was we had a guest on talking about SIM swapping. And it was in July of 2021. So check that out on the website anyway. But SIM swapping is generally a really easy thing to do, whether you social engineer it, which we all know is very doable, or you just bribe someone, which is probably a lot easier than social engineering anyway, and you end up getting them at a store to create a duplicate of the SIM card. And so a lot of the reason this has increased so much is because of multi-factor authentication. So now your cell phone is being used for a second factor beyond your username and password, and but credential stuffing is so prevalent and so easy that if your username and password is out there, now they need to get that second factor, right? Well, guess how they get that? A lot of these breaches resulted in people's mobile numbers being stolen as well. So if they have your mobile number, your username, your password, and you use those same sets of things everywhere, they can SIM swap you to get past the multi-factor. According to FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center, which is called IC3, by the way, or I don't know if they say IC cubed or what. IC cubed sounds cooler, right? Like IC cubed. Anyway, they received 1,611 SIM swapping complaints with losses in the $68 million total range for last year. So just last year. For the 3 years prior to that, from January 2018 to December 2020, there were only 320 total complaints about SIM swapping filed, with a total of 12 million in losses. That's a 400% increase in SIM swapping. This is just complaints, not how many actually occurred. This is people that actually called the FBI to complain. 400% increase in just 1 year over that 3-year period before. So not just 1 year before that, but 3 whole years. Wow. So there's not a lot you can do about it. I mean, think about that. If I walk into the local Verizon store this afternoon, so I leave the show, I go to Verizon, and I walk in and I've got a name, address, a password, and I go up to this friendly clerk at the desk, and I've got my whole sad face on. I guess that's a sad face. I'm not much of an actor, but I should practice that if I want to do this. But I walk in, I give them my whole sob story. I convinced them that I lost my phone or somebody stole my phone when I was on the bus, and my mom is scheduled for a kidney transplant tomorrow, and my cat ate my network cables, and then my cat died, and oh, it's so terrible. And I really just need one person to help me, one kind individual to give me that help. And so they do it. They give me a new SIM card. And I give them the number, and they create a SIM card, and I go plug it into to a phone. Well, once I've got that, I have access to all your stuff, right? And I can go reset your passwords because it may well be that all that stuff's already on that mobile device. But guess what else? I'm getting your text. I'm getting your two-factor codes. I get all of it. So when I go to reset your password on bankofx.com, and it says, send a message to your phone, and I go, yes, please. It said I get a copy of that as well. So hopefully you noticed that, and you didn't see me doing it, or you did see me doing it, or I'm going to go clean your bank account out. Your Bitcoin wallet may be on your phone. Uh-oh, jackpot. I just got a whole bunch of stuff. The FBI recommended to mobile carriers, and this is for the people that are actually doing this, to please educate your employees about social engineering and this kind of stuff and conduct training on it. Carefully inspect all incoming email addresses for slight variances from customer names, because people are doing this by email even. They're not even showing up at the Verizon store. They're sending requests. Set strict security protocols, which would require some sort of verification of the customer credentials. But I lost my wallet, sir, and my cat died. Please. Authenticate calls from third-party authorized retailers requesting customer information. Hi, I'm from Verizon, the store in New Jersey. Could I get you to reset? Yeah, exactly. But the recommendations for the end users then, and I know this is a long story, but this is a big deal. You don't make a big show about how much money you have online. Pretty smart move in general, because people can show up with ball bats too, you understand. Don't give out your mobile account information over the phone to somebody requesting it. Don't give out your PIN. All this stuff that we all know, but people do it all the time. Don't post your mobile number online. Basically they tell you don't use your mobile number. And if you watch that Pulse Security Weekly segment, you hear the same stuff, which is really tough to do these days. Don't use the same password for your mobile accounts and all your other stuff. Don't use the same password anywhere, please. Use strong MFA, which means you actually have true MFA, not just two-factor, so a biometric, a YubiKey, whatever. Don't store your passwords on your mobile device apps. And a lot of this is just really hard to do, but it's really scary. So check out that Pulse Security Weekly too if you are interested. A user named TopLeak, who claims to be the developer of Maze Egregor Sekhmet ransomwares, released decryption keys for all those ransomware strains in a forum post on Bleeping Computer. The post said, quote, "It's been lovely, but now it's time to say bye-bye. Neither of our team members will never return to this kind of activity. It was pleasant to work with you. All source code of tools ever made is wiped out." And that's very typical of Maze. They always have that kind of broken English stuff. The post also contained a zip file. Always, when you see a zip file on a web forum, always download that baby. But the zip file did contain apparently decryption keys, and it also contained some of Maze Gang's malware source code. It was taken down because that violates Bleeping Computer's policy about posting malware in their forum. But, to me, downloading a zip file that says it's got decryption keys in it is a good way to get ransomware. But Maze was once the largest of the ransomware gang and got started back in 2019. I feel like I'm doing one of those Requiem segments on the Academy Award. Those we have lost. Maze ransomware. TopLeak. Oh, how sad it was. Xerox was one of their first big hits. In 2020, they formed a cartel and joined with other ransomware gangs to share code ideas and resources. They're also credited with coming up with the dreaded double extortion technique, where they threaten to release the unencrypted file to the public unless you pay. No longer with us. Anyway, Maze had previously announced they were shutting down back in November of 2020 and had a big statement and a whole screed they put out on the internet about saving the world and all this kind of stuff that, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, if you do need keys for any of these ransomwares, I probably wouldn't recommend Googling searching for that download zip file on a web forum claiming to be ransomware keys, because those are almost always ransomware. But ImsaSoft has released the decryptor keys for all 3 of those ransomware strains. So if you want to get it from a more legitimate source, there is a link to that in the article at ImsaSoft software, or ImsaSoft. CISA warned administrators to patch the ICMAD, which stands for Internet Communication Manager Advanced Desync, which contains a flaw in SAP business apps that use the Internet Communications Manager. Anapsys found this vulnerability earlier, and they reported them to SAP, and it resulted in 3 CVEs, one of which was rated maximum severity and allowed remote code execution. Patches for all these vulnerabilities were released in the February 8th Patch Tuesday event for SAP. SAP said they did not know of any customers who had been breached, but they did strongly advise you to install these patches, and they also covered a number of other remote code execution bugs in SAP as well. If you aren't aware, Microsoft did release Windows 11 earlier and last year, and they didn't make a lot of fanfare about it. And they've been doing this thing where they notify you that you're eligible for an upgrade. It just sort of pops up on your screen. One of my laptops popped up with this, and I said, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I don't care if this laptop gets destroyed. But I did do that. It worked fine, and it was not a big change. And it basically ran, like any other update on Windows, so no big deal there. But as you might guess, fake Windows 11 upgrade installers have started to turn up. And these are basically opportunities when people Google for how to get Windows 11, they end up taking to some of these sites that, in this particular case, downloads Redline Stealer. Microsoft did just announce broad deployment phase for Windows 11, and this attack seemed to coincide with that announcement. Redline, if you're not familiar with it, is a password, browser cookie, credit card, crypto wallet grabber. It basically grabs anything worthwhile on your system. So if you install Redline, well, it's kind of like game over, man, game over. HP Research spotted this campaign, and it was coming from a site called windows-upgraded.com as a domain name. It looks like a legit Microsoft site. They had some screenshots of it. And if you click on the button, you get a zip archive named Windows 11 Installation Assistant.zip, which is downloaded from a Discord server. In the end, of course, you don't get Windows 11, and you do get Redline on your machine. You might want to issue a warning on this one. I went to the site this morning, and it was not only blocked by my system, which said it was a dangerous site, but the site appeared to be down. I actually went on through. It was a test system, so I don't mind if it gets attacked. But I tried to get to it, but it looked like the site was actually down. But I really doubt that's going to be the end of it. As I mentioned earlier, in the WoW category, the FBI did manage to grab 2 people, Heather Morgan and Ilya Lichtenstein. I'm sorry, Ilya, but that sounds like a fake name, Ilya Lichtenstein. But they were both residents of New York in relation to money laundering Bitcoin related to the Bitfinex attack. It's not clear if they are the people who hacked Bitfinex or someone else hacked it and they were just working for them, and it's not mentioned in the warrant. But the couple were trying to shift around crypto, and they've been doing this for years, apparently, that they knew had been stolen. That's the charge against them. Per the warrant says that. And the amount, of course, is pretty crazy, eye-catching. The original heist resulted in the loss of about 120,000 Bitcoin. Yeah. Wait for it, Bitcoin, not dollars, Bitcoin. And as of this morning, I punched that in, that would be about $5.2 billion. I think it's reported like 3.4 billion back when it was done, when this was actually done. Okay, I mean, that's a pretty good heist, right? I mean, Bonnie and Clyde step aside, and this is like big time. Anyway, in a long, drawn-out, many-year investigation, the feds finally chased this down, and they figured out they actually tied a cloud-based account to Ilya, and they were able to slowly piece together that these people were moving around thousands of Bitcoins into thousands of different wallets. They were moving Bitcoin into dark web accounts on Alphabay, which is now shut down, and other crypto exchanges and coins. So they were just moving all this stuff around, trying to launder it somehow. The creation of so many accounts eventually did lead the investigators back to these guys. Heather Morgan is identified on Engadget as a self-styled rapper, artist, activist, entrepreneur who is called Razzlecon, and apparently is also called the Crocodile of Wall Street. It's a pretty interesting story with a big dollar amount associated with it. It sounds like it would be a really cool Netflix series. So, hey, Netflix, call me. I'll write it. It'll be like Tiger King or something. And finally, I know it didn't seem like there would ever be a finally today. I am still waiting for Elon to send me a Tesla X. Elon, you know what you said, man. But in the meantime, this story documents some of the videos of self-driving Tesla fails. I mean, I don't really think anybody believes that self-driving is really that great of an idea, even people with Tesla. I know some people with Teslas, they're always like, oh, yeah, I try self-driving all the time. But, I mean, I don't think anybody really buys that it's fully functional yet. But people do keep trying it. And this video, which has been memeing, there have been tons of memes about this online, has Teslas blazing through crosswalks, people diving out of the way, hitting bollards, getting, totally trashed by trolley rails, including a validated video that the Washington Post one invalidated, where the vehicle actually followed some train rails they were like trolley rails on the street, like they have in Prague, but the rails suddenly leave the street and go off down, and the car like follows the rails down, into a train station. That sounds fun. And my car has some auto drive features, and I've really tried them out. I was actually able to let my car drive, and yes, you do have to keep a hand on the wheel or a knee or something, but you just sort of put your finger on it. It's fine. But it actually drove all the way from Norwood, Massachusetts on the freeway to North Providence, and I didn't really do anything. I was just seeing how it would do, and it was really cool. It maintained distance between the cars and stayed in the lane and all this kind of stuff. But when the road got kind of dicey as we got into Providence and the lanes weren't clearly marked, there's some big curves, it got a little it was a little crazy then. But I think the thing is we're going to see this in the not too distant future. Maybe not yet, but we are going to see it. And I can't wait, because then you can sit in the back and have drinks, right? Elon, call me about that Tesla, okay? Really, man. And that's a wrap-up for the week of 6 February 2022. I'm Doug White, and I will see you next week on the Security Weekly News.